What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we need to be having a look at the leader Luffy from Starter Deck 21. Yesterday I told you I couldn't show you the leader properly, but now I can, and I'm delighted. By the way, I know my video actually went live yesterday, very shortly after that leader was first peaked. The answer very simply is that yesterday was a very busy day where I was on daddy duty and then I had to go to a school open day and all sorts, and by the time I got home, the video about Starter Deck 21 was live and the Luffy leader had been revealed. But we had a good chat about Starter Deck 21 in yesterday's video. We went through a lot of information that I think you need to know about that starter deck. Now, however, we can sit and dig into the leader, and I'm going to be honest with you. In my previous videos, knowing that this was a mono-red Luffy, I was a bit cynical. I was asking if we necessarily needed a mono-red Luffy, especially after the Luffy that we had in Starter Deck 1. I take it back. We did need this Luffy. I like this Luffy. I am very excited about this Luffy. As a side note, my 2-year-old is learning about One Piece now, and he calls him Luffy the Monkey, and I think that is adorable. But we have a look now at this leader where we can actually see what it does, and what we've got is, as we knew, a mono-red, 5 life, 5,000 power, all standard. But we've got a skill whereby Don X1, activate main, once per turn, give one of your characters up to 2 rested Don cards. Oh yes. Oh, that will do very nicely indeed, ladies and gentlemen. That will do very nicely indeed. Shout out to Rush TCG, by the way, who have been sharing this image around. Although I've also seen it on Bulbasaur over on the Facebook group. Bunch of people sharing this image. I have done the translation myself, but shout out to them for sharing this image around. It's doing the rounds, but they were 2 of the people from whom I saw it. And this is great. Now, it's a little bit awkward, but it's very, very cool. Of course, the first thing we need to do is put it side by side with Luffy from Starter Deck 1, and it is actually a very similar leader. Now, it is 4 Emperors and Straw Hat Crew rather than Supernova and Straw Hat Crew. Same 5,000 power, same 5 life, and you get to attach rested Don. But here's the thing. Starter Deck 1 Luffy was just give your leader or character 1 rested Don. This is, you need to have a Don on Luffy, and then you get to put 2 rested Don onto your character. Not leader, character. So you don't get to attach to your leader, but you do get to attach 2 rested Don, but you have to whack a Don on your Luffy in order to activate it. And honestly, I like this more. I like this more than Starter Deck 1 Luffy. Now, the biggest issue here is that you're kind of a Don behind when you're using this skill, which in the late game isn't going to matter, but in the early game is going to matter. If you've got 4 Don and want to play a 4 cost, not a random example, we'll get there in a minute, you can do that, but you then can't give them Don if they have Rush, for argument's sake. What you can do, however, is when you've got a Don to spare, give 2 extra Don. And let's face it, most of us swing with our leader most turns anyway. So putting a Don on our leader to put our leader from a 5k up to a 6k is not a bad thing. You get a more powerful leader by putting a Don on there, and then you get to attach 2 rested Don to one of your characters, and then you get a 2k bump to one of your characters. I like this very much indeed. I told you before we knew what this Luffy did, I told you that we were going to need a reason to play this over Starter Deck 1 Luffy, which was good in the early days of the One Piece TCG, but has dropped off pretty dramatically since. It's not really a viable deck right now. I told you that we would need a reason. We would need something to play this over that Luffy, and this is it. Sure, you've got to use a Don on your Luffy, which is annoying because you're not always going to have the Don to spare. But attaching 2 rested Don rather than 1 to give a 2k bump rather than a 1k bump, that is going to make a difference, especially if you can get a character swinging multiple times during your turn, for instance, or it's got double attack or something like that. I love this. I think this is brilliant. But we've got to look at the Zoro as well. It's just come out in the last couple of minutes as I'm recording this. And what we've got here is, we knew this was coming around before. It's a 4-cost, 5,000 power, counter plus 1,000. And annoyingly, the image we've got being shared around is, it's actually cutting the cost off. But of course, in that little sneak peek I showed you the other day, we did get to see that it was a 4-cost. So it's one of those mash the images together and you'll get to see it. But we've got 4-cost, 5,000 power, counter plus 1,000. And I thought it was going to have Don X1 and it gains Rush. It's actually got Don X2 and it gains Rush. I think we've got the translation here. It is a little bit blurry. Let's be clear. And then, of course, I thought it was going to be Don X1 and it gains Rush, which means it would have worked brilliantly with the starter deck 1 Luffy. It doesn't. It's Don X2 and it gains Rush. Now, obviously, there is a combo screaming to be made here with the leader, because Leader Luffy gives 2 rested Don to one of your characters, so you use that to put the 2 Don onto Roanoa Zoro, and then all of a sudden Roanoa Zoro becomes a 7k with Rush, except it's a 5-cost 7k with Rush. Because in order to activate Luffy's skill to get the 2 rested Don on Roanoa Zoro, you need to actually get the Don onto Luffy, which you do have to pay for normally. So if you've got 4 Don, you play Zoro. It's not a dramatic pause. You don't have any Don left to put onto Luffy to activate the skill to put the Don onto Zoro. But if you've got 5 Don, you play Zoro, you put the Don on Luffy, and then you get the 2k bump. But it's not really just a 5 cost for Zoro. You pay the 5 for Zoro, and you've got a 7k with Rush, and then your leader's a 6k. That's pretty good, ladies and gentlemen. That's pretty good. It does make me wonder, are there going to be a bunch of other, because this is what Bandai generally tends to do, are there going to be other cards with Don X2 in the set, or in the deck, so that you want to use Luffy's skill on like 4 different characters a turn? The answer is probably that's what Bandai generally tends to do. But wait, there's a second skill as well. And what we've got from this second skill is, on play, you may play a 5,000 power or less red character from your hand. Now, this is important because we've only seen blurry pictures of this. I believe this is a translation, but you all need to know it is not 100% confirmed. I believe it is on play. You can play a 5k or less red character from your hand. Now, this is very, very, very important. Because now, and like I've said, you really need 5 Don to play Zoro, because you need the 4 to pay for Zoro, and the 1 to attach to Luffy to activate the Rush for Zoro, because having a 7k Rush is just redonk. 7k Rush for 5 Don is pretty amazing. And you've even got counter plus 1,000, so yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, a vanilla character would be 4 cost, 6,000 power, counter plus 1,000. This is essentially 5 cost, 7k, vanilla, plus it's got your counter, and it's got this second skill, and it's got Rush. If you play this as a 5k with Luffy, it becomes an absurdly powerful card. So then the question becomes, alright then, 5,000 power or less, red character, what have we got? Because what we're really looking for here is, well, what I like to call like a Rebecca or a Shirahoshi, by which I mean a character whose power is very low compared to their cost, because they've got an incredibly good skill. Like the Shirahoshi from OPO3 that has no power, but on play draw free trash 2. You don't really want to pay 5 for it, but it's got a trigger, so it's alright by us. That's the kind of one we're talking about. And I think there's an obvious answer here. I think the obvious answer here is Nefertari Vivi from OPO4. It's a card which doesn't see much play, because as a 7 cost, it's a bit too expensive. But now you've got the counter plus 1,000, which is awesome, but all your red characters of a cost of 3 or more other than this one gain Rush. So you whack this down, and you never really want to attack with it because you don't want it to be a character which can be challenged. You want it to just be sitting out there as a static skill. And then all of your red with 3k or more just gain rush, which is kind of brilliant. And then, here's what's funny about this. If you play Zoro as a 4-cost, and you don't use Luffy's skill, but you use this to play Vivi, then all of a sudden Vivi gives you rush. So you don't actually need to get the rush from the Don X2. If you use this to play Vivi, Vivi will give you rush, along with a bunch of others. And there are some other red characters we can be going for here. The Kid and Killer from EBO1 is a very good card with 5k and rush. It's only a 4-cost. You're not getting as much value as you would with the Vivi, but it's still a very good character that's seen a bunch of play in red, so that's another one that you could go ahead and use here. The point is, it's not just what we've got now, it's what we're going to have in the future, and all of this is just adding up to lovely. If we have our translation correct on this, Zoro, and again, I need to stress, we are not 100% on this, we need to wait for a really clear scan, but it seems to be Don X2, you gain rush, that is good. But then on play, you can play a 5k or less red character from your hand, and that is going to combo wonderfully with cards like Vivi or Kid and Killer. And now, all of a sudden, we are rolling. Love this card. Like the Luffy leader. Love the new Zoro. Now we wait for clear translations from clear scans and also the other cards from Starter Deck 21. For now, I want to know all of your thoughts, your feelings, and everything else. So let me know in the comment section, would you? Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wasi. That's where we talk about One Piece and a bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wasi Plays.